David Fribbins. So nice to have you here. Thank you so much for taking the time today.
Well, thanks for having me.
You are right now Chief Growth Officer at Wotter, which is an employee management software. But first of all, you're dad to two beautiful children, which you were just telling me is taking a lot of effort on your side. And it's a little bit more than a side project.
Yeah, it's more than a full-time job, to be honest.
And you're an author. But unlike many business people I know, you don't write any old nonfiction business books. You wrote a book titled The Crown, the Tiger, and the Curious Case of the 40 Elephants, which you can really tell by the title. It's on this book, you take people on a ride on the London Tube's Victoria Line while telling an unedited but 100% historical accurate recount of the major event in the life of Queen Victoria. And I read the book. Everybody should read it. It's just like, I couldn't believe every page I was turning as in, am I reading? What am I reading right now? It's totally visionary. Let's call it visionary.
Thanks very much.
It's the first time. Well, it's a great book. It's a great book. Really recommend it. If you like having fun and laughing, if you like your sad life, just stick to it and don't stay away from it. Aside from that, there's a specific reason why I'm fond of you. I hope this is not a false memory, but when we met the first time we talked, you said to me, I have a background in design. You are the only client in the history of my career that said to me, I have a background in design and didn't turn out to be a big pain in the ass. So that's one of the main reasons why I've been fond of you. And I noticed that every organization you joined, and I saw you moving through at least 3 since I've known you, now almost 10 years. You injected with your character and personality. All of a sudden, I found myself interesting about basement renovation or employee management software. I never had a basement to renovate, and I've never been an employee. So that's quite the achievement. And, you see one of your posts on LinkedIn and you have to ask yourself, who are these people? Like, it's very clear that if you are in a company, then this company must be doing something different. So I'm very glad to have you here. Thank you so much for taking the time. Please tell us a little more about what are you up to these days, about yourself.
Sure. So, yeah, thank you. That's probably the nicest introduction I've ever had, which is very kind. So thank you very much. Yeah. So background in design without being a full-on designer, like this is my thing that I do. It was a skill that I tried to pick up just because some friends were designers and very good at what they did. And I wanted to get alongside and see how they used Adobe and things like that. And then it turned into some freelancey bits of work. So that's the original origin through, but I've never considered myself an expert in design. That's not my bag, which is why I was looking for support from an expert in design when we were rebranding the basement company.
Yes.
Yeah. So I guess my role, I'm generally a very eclectic person, hence a book that's about Victorian England, even though I'm not a historian, and then working as a director in a basement, a basement company. It was a construction company, but basements was the niche specialism. And yeah, and then into a tax consultancy, which is the middle business that we were in your 3 that you've seen, and now employee engagement. But yeah, my general role is I tend to fill gaps. So I'm good at finding what's missing and how do you then bridge that to make everything else come together. So in many ways, I'm more of an ops person than anything else. That's where you'd probably find me sitting. And even within Chief Growth, which is the current title, really what I'm there doing is the operational side of growth. It's not necessarily the day-to-day bits of that. It's not that this is exactly what this design needs to look like, or this is what this needs to happen with this business development thing, or this. It's the overall, how do we actually make this function? And yeah, that's the thing that I enjoy doing. I like making things tick.
So tell me about a time in your careers where things really ticked. So what has been some great achievements for the organization that you work with? What would you say were biggest achievements, whether in your most recent organization or?
So the biggest win ever is one of the more recent ones, which is with Wotter, the current company, the
Yes.
employee engagement platform. The platform is a tech platform, but it's a very advanced tech platform in a HR industry that's normally quite not particularly cutting edge. The tech is normally quite old. And although we deal with surveys, which is a very, very old technology and very easy technology, the way the company are trying to deliver that and do things is really quite advanced.
Innovative.
And the dev team that their work really, it caught the attention of Google. Everything's built on GCP, and Gemini is quite an integral part of what we're doing with our AI stuff. And so we've been able to really work closely and alongside Google and Google Cloud in particular for the last 12 months, which involved, you can see this on YouTube now on Google Cloud's own video platform. They took the company to Vegas to make a video about how the company uses their technology. We're calling it under the label of their New Way. So they've got a thing called New Way now, which is Google's marketing of how technology can influence and change industry. And we are the new way now to do employee engagement, which is a huge, massive thing to have something. This is a small company from Chichester on the south coast of England that's been picked up by Google behemoth saying, this is interesting.
This is how you do it. This is how you do it. Amazing.
Yeah, and it got to the point where we launched our AI model back in September, and Google gave us the top floor of their Tottenham Court Road HQ in London to launch that and run an event, and gave us live stream support with their tech team and things. That's the biggie. I think anyone with any form of sort of comms or partnership or any kind of background in a business where it's about how do you leverage and get some kind of authority off of someone else's authority that you can leverage about yourself, which is supposed
the
to
opposite happened to you. Like they came to you.
Yeah, that's it. I can say we're amazing, but I've got a vested interest. Google have no vested interest in saying it. So if you can get someone else to say it, it carries a lot more weight than me saying it.
Yes.
And being able to sort of just literally just share and then just write in a little note saying, this is what Google have said. And that's a wonderful, wonderful feeling. I think I may have peaked with that, though. I'm not sure I can actually go one step better than that.
I'm sure you will. I trust you will.
How do you go bigger than Google?
Well, I don't know. I'm sure there are ways. Everything is subjective, isn't it?
I suppose. Maybe. We'll see. I'll go back to the thinking board on that one.
Right. Cool. But yeah, it's amazing achievement. You said it's a small company. Can you tell me more about what do you mean by that? By small?
Sure. So we're only a company of 5 employees. So the goal there is to remain 10. So we want to become a global company with only 10 full-time members of staff. The idea is to remain incredibly lean. But yeah, the company it's only 5 years old now. 3 years it's been Wotter. They went through a rebrand and repositioned themselves during COVID. And yeah, we're now up to sort of the low 6 figures turnover, which would be your annual recurring because it's a SaaS platform. So we're at the point of being default alive from a income revenue generating perspective, but with big growth plans. So that's why I'm there really. I wasn't there in day dot. I've been there for a year, and my goal is to just accelerate that growth and make sure that we can become the large company we want to be.
I want to hear more about the plans that you have, but I want to ask you first, how many users does your platform serve?
So there are only around 40 clients in terms of companies, but then we charge by user. So it's for employees of those companies. So we're in, what are we? I've got the wrong number here because I'm going off of our previous one, not this year's one. I'm going to say 27 countries, but it's not 27 countries. It's more than that. So it's used in 27 different countries. The majority are UK entities or headquartered with offshore offices. So that's how we tend to get in. Although we do now have our first overseas only entities. So we're now in Canada, the US, and we're in talks with New Zealand. So we haven't actually got the New Zealand up and running just yet, just in there.
Amazing. Yeah, it's great. It's great to get a sense and a perspective on the scale and what does it mean to have a profitable company, because we always used to talk about unicorns and, millions and billions and trillions now. It's become a thing that we talk about every day, but size and being a healthy and profitable company with big plans usually doesn't sound like all the headlines that we read around this industry.
Yeah. I mean, the company doesn't sit in a field that particularly attracts unicorns. HR tech HR tech maybe, but it's a very dominated and saturated field. So you'd have to have something that's completely off the wall to be a unicorn there. Yeah, I guess to give some context on that, the company, it hasn't raised. So it's only ever taken on investment from sort of the friends and family pool to give it some capital, but it's never done an actual raise. It's never gone to private equity or looked at VC. So all of that growth is organic growth over that period. And I say that we've doubled the revenue in the last 12 months. So the growth has doubled.
That's amazing.
Which that's my way of saying I've been there a year and we're now twice later. So that's my cue for my own marketing there.
Yeah, amazing. And so you were saying huge growth in the past year and big plans for more growth in the coming years. What milestones are on the horizon?
So, I mean, the thing with the international, so starting to take on international clients, that's started, but we began that work a year ago and we're now starting to see the leads turning into clients. Sorry. So we want to continue that because we're suddenly opening up new markets, new geographies. There's an entire new marketplace that we've not been in. Therefore, there's a lot more scope for us. The UK will still be, we haven't got the market share that we want in the UK yet. So we want to go and get more of that. Part of that is leveraging the relationship with Google, because it's a great way to say we are doing something different. And this is probably where we get onto what are the challenges of how do you achieve that. One of the major problems we have is we are an advanced tech platform. We call ourselves Gen 2, whereas everybody else would be Gen 1 SaaS. But our big problem is our key selling points, what we say about ourselves, everybody else says about themselves too. They just don't realize that they're not that thing. And so to somebody who is not tech, who is a potential vendor or a user of our product, they get exactly the same description, which the key word in my head there is real time. So real time is a buzzword that gets used across all kinds of data analysis. What one of our competitors would mean by real time is you can log in at any moment and see your information up to date. What it doesn't say is that your data is in date. You're looking at information from 3 months ago, but you're looking at it in real time because the last time you asked a question and got that data was 3 months ago. So they're not incorrect. They're not mis-selling something.
Yes.
But their definition of real time is very different to our definition of real time. But that's the word that's used. That's the description that's used in marketing. A lot of the challenge there is about how do we overcome that barrier? How do you start to show the differentiation? Sorry, I've got a bug in the back of my throat, obviously. Yeah, having someone like Google attached to you is it's a way of saying when we say we do something differently, we do something differently because otherwise these guys would not be saying it. So that's really, I think, going to be one of the key leveraging things for us over the next little while is how do you get other people saying it about you?
Interesting challenge. In all of this, what would you say is the role? And let's talk broadly about creative design, branding. What would you say the role of these things has been so far? The success of Wotter.
With Wotter in particular. So interestingly, when I joined into Wotter, I've known them for a few years prior to starting with them. They were already pretty good. It's not these guys were terrible, they were doing things wrong and I came in and I fixed that. That's not at all what the situation was. Really, it's been, and maybe this is the key point of the difference of it's the final 5% that's quite important in design. What they had was 95% there. What they hadn't done and what my role was initially is that kind of, how do you take something that's very close to being what your ICP expect, are looking for, sound like, resonate with, and how do you get that last 5% that takes it to comfort and being confident that this is the thing that is going to deliver what they want it to be. And I think that's probably the description. It's the last 5% that's really the thing that's changed in the last 12 months. And I don't think we've necessarily got all 5% of that, but we've taken steps towards it and we're getting closer and closer and closer to it being, okay, we are there now. This is now resonating with the people we want it to resonate with.
And I told you before, for what it's worth, I believe in terms of branding, messaging, like you look like $1 million online. You're definitely punching above your weight. And I would say it's also a factor contributing to the fact that you have been noticed by, big name like Google. Would you say that is the case? Like the way you present yourself has influenced somehow your success in some way?
Possibly. I think to be honest with the Google thing, I don't think Google noticed us because they came across us. I think we're in their ecosystem. And I think that I think it helps. So there's definitely, it brings an element of trust that lets us to run an event together at their venue because they know there's an element of quality that's going to come with it. So I think that it feeds into that quite well. So yes, but the initial, the trigger there, the spark that gets that relationship, the spark that gets us talking, that gets the interest, it really was to do with the product itself.
Yes.
And the thing when I started, what I was saying with the CEO as my warning is that the best products don't always win. Having the best product is great. It's a really big advantage, but that actually whether people use it or not is that's the determining factor of success. And I think Google are very good at identifying the best products, very good at best product. But the next part of the success part is still reliant. And I think it comes back to that sort of 5% thing again. That's the bit that's going to determine whether or not someone picks you up or just looks at you and goes, not right for me.
So talking about this 5% more, which in part you feel like you're covering well right now, what is it that you think you need to get to that, to complete that 5%?
That's a good question. I think within Wotter in particular, because I think this would be different in different places.
Yes, of course.
And I probably need to put a caveat in to say that I think there are some very basic things that we are still missing that would not be anywhere near the 5%, but I think they're sort of separate items. So they're the levers that need to actually just be introduced to be pulled. Even when you've got those things, the 5% is the thing that is the difference of it being successful or unsuccessful. Email marketing is an example of one of those things that's not quite ticking. It's been historically used and hasn't worked because it hasn't had that final 5%. But now we've got the 5%, we need to introduce it again to see if it works. It's those kinds of things that I think we're looking at. And I've just said marketing emails as a off the wall thing of a thing. It isn't the thing. It's potentially in a smorgasbord of potential avenues. So that's my caveat to the bit that I'm going to say about the final 5%. I think the final 5%, you kind of have to you've got to start to understand your ICP. And to do that, you have to have identified your ICP, but you need to talk to them. And I'm not sure how I feel about the sort of going out and giving lots of people surveys to ask them how they feel, because I think that what you get back is useful and it's good, but there's something about actually sitting down and being friends with your ICP, because it's in that relationship that you start to work out, what is it that makes this person tick? What do they sound like when they're talking about the pain point that you fix? What do they say about your competition? What do they say about you? You need to really start to get the granular feel for what's going on. And once you've got that going, and it will be different things that you'll hear from people, you can start to draw the patterns. And I think once you can draw the patterns, you can start to say, okay, I know if I say this, these people are going to have this reaction to it. And then you start to go, okay, well, how do we position ourselves within that to then have that response and that reaction? And yeah, I think that's how you do that. It's not about trying to be able to predict the person. It's about the relational connection. Can you actually relate with your customer? What would a conversation over a beer in a pub look like if that's what your ICP would do? And I think that's where you start to really get how should this sound? How should this taste? How should this feel with what you're doing?
Amazing.
And then obviously when you do it, you measure it. You have to then make sure that it has the intended impact when you actually let it go.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, this is the full circle. So right now, who in your organization goes out to find this information, who distills this information into, let's say, a brief, and who turns it into words and visuals, and then who checks if this stuff is actually working? What does this process look like for Wotter?
So the information gathering at the start point of I suppose ICP definition, that kind of sits with me and the CEO. That's us two. Apologies again. The rest of the team, we actually have got quite a democratic approach in terms of how we bring information together, and everyone does have a voice to be able to put in what they think. The responsibility for it ultimately sits with me. So if I really feel that this is what we have to do and everybody else disagrees, I can override everybody else. But that comes with the weight of it being purely on my shoulders at that point. And it very rarely is the case. But we do have quite a democratized approach of people saying, well, what do you think? What's your feel on this? So that's one area of where we source ideas ourselves. We're fortunate in that we have paying clients that have been with us now for years. So we have the ability to say, well, our ICP use us. So let's talk with our users. Let's go and sit with them. Let's invite them to tell us what they think. And that's another area where we get to do things, and we get to test our creative with them as well. Because if we want to do something, the key one really is we recently launched the AI model that I was talking about. And there was, on our internal discussions, how we personified the AI was quite a big area, because I instantly found myself saying it should be a dog. Like we work in HR, a dog is a perfect example of the type of creature that elicits the response that we want. And the fact that the AI is the thing that goes and finds information for you and then brings it back to you. That's what dogs do. The whole image of a dog is it goes and picks the newspaper up and brings it to you. Like it's a perfect example of what we would do. But the counterpoint is it trying too hard? Is that feeling contrived that would then feel like it's trying to force something that isn't natural? And so we were left with well, both of those things could be true. We've got no way of knowing which one is true. So we need to put it in front of ICP and see how they respond. And so we did that in a number of different ways. There are a few people that we did some mock-ups for, and we just put it in front of them and said, what do you think of this? There was some where we would give them a bit of context to say, this is what we're looking to build. This is what we want it to do. What do you think that should be looking like? And the ultimate test is when we launched, because that's when you get your true feedback. My barometer, and this is one of the goals I've got for Wotter, is I'm not interested in people liking Wotter. I don't want people to say, oh yeah, I quite like them. What I want is for people to say, I love these guys. That's my measure. I want to say, I absolutely love what these guys do. And when we launched our video at the Google to show this is the new product, it was the dog fully AI generated video because Google gave us a bunch of credits and said, we'd like you to make an AI video using our platform. Can you? And we said yes. And it was the dog basically waking up to an alert saying that something's happened and then carrying letters through all of these different work environments and eventually arriving at HR's desk. And then the screen comes up and says HR's new best friend. Like it's a relatively simple video in that sense, but it touches all of the key points that we need. We had clients in the room who were potentially going to upgrade to the new tier and people in the room who never heard us before. But we knew ICP were in the room because they're our ICP. And one of the specific things we did is we sort of sat there and we watched. So the video was playing, they were looking at the video and we were off to the side just watching the responses to see what's happening on these key people when they're being introduced. And the video finished. And then one member of our ICP that we've identified as a core, we do a lot of measurement on this person just by how do they respond. They sort of turned to their CEO and were just like, I love him, about the dog. And it was just like, that's it. If we ever wanted a vindication and a validation, we set out with the goal of we want people to say, I love these guys. I love what they do. We know who our ICP are. They're sitting there right in the room next to it. And we've got this idea that we want to test in the environment that's there. And the result back was just, we could not have been a more perfect validation for what we were trying to achieve at that moment. And I think that's part of that. How do you do that?
Yes.
In that scenario, that's me. That's my role. I'm responsible for that after part. I'm responsible for the first part and the last part. The bit in the middle where it actually gets executed, that's where it's a combination of things. So we're a small team, but we're also not supermen. We only have so much capacity to do things and deliver things. And so we generally try to rely on AI as much as we can because we're in the tech ecosystem. We are Gemini users. Why would we not be making use of the tools?
Yes.
And it also helps us stay sharp about what generative AI is capable of. So it's in our wheelhouse. But then when it comes to things that are a little bit outside of what we can do ourselves, we go, okay, we need someone to come in now. And then we'll look to outsource a bit of that and bring someone alongside. Yeah. Each idea, each project is sort of taken on its own merit. And then we work out how we resource that and what the best routes are and whether we can internally do it or externally require the support.
Interesting. And how do you budget for these efforts? Like in case you have to hire outside help, like a consultant or a contractor, how do you budget for it?
So generally speaking, the budgets that we have, or the budgets I have, because it falls, again, this is one of those, it sits under me. So while we democratize a lot of stuff, I'm sort of final say, we have the amount of money that we want to spend over the course of a year based on what we currently have as revenue. So the way we operate is whenever a new client comes on board, that extra revenue goes into the marketing pot, or at least a big chunk of it goes straight into the marketing pot we want to accelerate. We've got the final 5%, which is the key bit of finishing everything off. But because those pillars aren't all in place, there are other things that we can spend on and improve that will then obviously net more revenue back, which goes into another pot, which nets more revenue back. So there's a bit of a continuing cycle, and the budget
cycle
fluid with that. But the way we would look at it is we have our core spend. These are the things that we are definitely going to be spending money on. And we try to then, any ideas that we come up with, any of the things that we want to execute, we try to fit within those already existing systems. So that could be ChatGPT, Nano Banana, or Gemini, or even Claude. We tend to try and keep all models going at once. It could also be even simple things like having like Apollo for some data enrichment or a CRM. All of these things are the costs that sit there. So it's, can we make use of our CRM from a tech perspective in order to then sort out something we want to do with email. So rather than needing to go and pay for something in email, can we do it within the system we've already got? So a lot of our budget is sort of fixed. This is the core spend, and how can we maximize core spend? And if it can't sit within it, it goes through an approval process to say, okay, well, what options do we have to do this? How much does each option cost? And realistically, how does that fit into our overall marketing strategy? And is it worth the added expenditure at this point?
Interesting. And so this is how you do things now. Do you think this changing in the future? Do you see this functions that you are right now outsourcing sometimes via contractors or consultants being brought in-house? Do you see yourself working more with external contractors? Do you see the investment increasing in the future in terms of percentages of, yearly budget?
I think it will change. That much is inevitable. How it changes will depend on what happens with the growth. And you mentioned investment. The company hasn't taken investment, but it isn't anti-taking investment. And so there's a great question that we were challenged. So on the board, there is a head of a marketing agency who's very, very useful and challenges us quite significantly, particularly me, on how we can do things better. But she posed a question to us that was really useful. That was, if you had £1 million tomorrow, what would you do? And it's that question of, okay, so it's not like what can you just do right now? It's what do you want to do that you can't do because you haven't got the enablement? And so what would you do if you had that resource available? And so this is what we're currently building at the moment in our marketing plan is what would a £2 million marketing budget look like for us? Where would we put that spend? What would we do with that money? And how would it cross-pollinate into different things that we're already doing? And then you sort of scale it back to your areas of most importance, because we don't have £2 million to spend on marketing tomorrow. So how do you then scale that back into what's feasible and what's possible? So I think what we end up doing will change depending on how we generate the new marketing budget. Is it through growth? And at that point, how quick is the growth? So how quickly does the money release? Or is it through an investment that comes in that gives us that instant runway and that instant ability to spend? And at the moment, we've kind of got that planned for about £500,000 of expenditure, but we haven't finished. That's just this is the first £500,000 that we would spend. Where I think it will go if it's organic, because I don't ever want to rely on investment that isn't there or that isn't even being discussed at this point, because what's the point? It would rely more on external partners. So the company would have to bring somebody in, would create effectively a sink of cost, but you're only ever going to get sort of one specialism within a person, unless you get someone who's amazing generalist, but the cost of that would be astronomical. We need a specialist to do the thing that's special, because otherwise we can do that as generalists ourselves. And so we would almost certainly lean on external contractors that can bring us a fractional resource, higher rate, but a fractional resource with a greater output of quality. That's what we would be looking for.
Amazing. David, I think I learned a lot on this call. I don't have any more questions for you, but there's so much to unpack in the conversation that we just had. It's amazing. Thank you so much. Before we part, I wanted to ask you, let's give a shout out to the people and the company that take care of creatives, messaging, marketing for you. Is there anyone in particular that you'd like to give a shout out of, inside or outside your organization, that's been particularly functional to your success, especially in the past year since you've been on it?
In the past year, I mean, inside the company, 100%.
Yeah, inside or outside, please give a shout out.
There will be some, but inside 100% is Jamie Rookyard. So he's our head of product. So he's actually a front end and he's a dev, but he's taken on things like the web build, and his ability to design things is quite stunning. And he produces at an enormously efficient scale. Like he produces creative at a pace that I wish I could create. And I don't know how he outputs it the way he outputs it. But
his ability is evident to anyone, even just visiting the site.
Yeah, but I think the fact that he's got a dev head helps, because he's now, I know with the website at the moment, if you go to it, while I'm responsible for brand and feel and those things, the actual nuts and bolts of that website and the functionality of the website. So if you go to different pages, you get different calculators and different animations and things happening. It's all him, and he's just doing it and producing it and producing it and producing it at really impressive scales. So he's been exceptional. When we talk about that 5%, while I might be responsible for some of it, he probably is responsible for the bulk of it. Yeah, so he'd be my main shout out, Jamie Rookyard.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Jamie, then. And with this, I'm complete. What about you, David? Anything you'd like to add before we say goodbye?
No, I'm happy with that.
Amazing.
Yeah, if you feel we've covered it, I don't know if there's anything else you're.
I think we went above and beyond. Yeah. Thank you so much, David, again.
No
Good luck
problem.
with everything. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Ciao.